Live from New York City, it's the Gary Null Show. And now, your host, Gary Null.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gary Null. Always a pleasure to be able to share the latest on health and healing insights with you. And by the way, virtually all the information I share, I get from PubMed, the National Library of Medicine. That's the official repository of all the good and qualified peer-reviewed science in the United States. And so it's quality information. Now, I select the information based upon the fact that this is a worldwide audience. We're heard all over the world. And therefore, the needs in one area may not be the same as somewhere else. But everything that I share with you will help every single person listening, some more than others. For example, think of all the people in your life that may be suffering from memory loss or dementia, our parents, our grandparents, and if you're an older adult, you yourself. What do? Unfortunately, the mainstream medical community doesn't have the answer for that. And even when you end up with symptoms, all they're doing is treating the symptoms. What if we could do something that could prevent it? Wouldn't that be better? I believe it is. As a result, the Laishu University in China has come up with a new study that shows that antioxidants, that's your fruits and vegetables, the more you intake, the better it is, and the lower your dementia risk. And this was no little study. This was a systematic review and META analysis published in the Journal of European Geriatric Medicine. Now, a meta-analysis where they look at many different studies on a given topic and see what do they all have in common. What they all had in common of 75 studies and 19 articles was that vitamin C, vitamin E, and beta-carotene lowered your risk of dementia. Now, they looked at over 28,000 individuals and they evaluated the intake of diet and supplements of the flavonoids, vitamin C and E, with Alzheimer's disease. All cause dementia, cognitive impairment without dementia. Because you could be in your 40s and right now end up with various cognitive impairments. If you're depressed, if you're lonely, if you're not eating a good diet, if you're not exercising, if you have high blood pressure, all that can lead to cognitive impairment, where your cognition is just not working the way it once did. So we took a look at this series of studies, and I'll break it to the lowest denominator. The more fruits and vegetables you eat, the higher your vitamin C intake from the diet, that glass of orange juice, for example, you have a 30% lower risk of having dementia. How about that? That's just dietary change alone, just with some supplements. And each 20 milligram per day increase in vitamin C from your diet overall made a difference in lowering the risk of Alzheimer's. So vitamin C, vitamin E helps you prevent dementia. Now, I just mentioned that study showing that the more fruits and vegetables you have, the more vitamin C you have, the less dementia and cognitive decline in Alzheimer's. But there's another study. This is from the University of Granada. It's different. It says antioxidant capacity of orange juice is multiplied 10-fold. That means 10 times. Now, normally we would have thought that a glass of orange juice would give you in the neighborhood of about 100 milligrams of vitamin C, and it would be bioavailable, meaning it's juiced, so the juice doesn't require digestion, so it goes right into your system. But you're getting about 3 oranges to 4 oranges per glass, and if each orange contains somewhere around 30 to 50 milligrams of vitamin C, then one glass of orange juice could give you somewhere between 100 to 150 milligrams of vitamin C, more or less, depending upon the size of the oranges. Now, the antioxidant activity of citrus fruits, that includes grapefruits, lemons, and limes, and oranges, and other foods, is undervalued. This is brand new information. And a new technique developed by researchers at the University of Granada for measuring the property generates value that are 10 times higher than those indicated by current analysis methods. The results suggest that tables on the antioxidant capacities of food products, the dietitians, and by the way, I'm also a registered dietitian and went to New York School of Dietitians and did 900 hours to 1,200 hours of being a dietitian in a setting before then becoming registered. That was before I got my my undergraduate and graduate degrees, including a PhD in human nutrition and public health science. And we were reading that an orange is good. It's great. All right. But now we're being told, but we misjudged an orange, misjudged a glass of, let's say, grapefruit juice. And all those tables of how much you're getting, way off. So in order to study these compounds in the laboratory, techniques that simulate the digestion of food in the digestive tract are used, which analyze only the antioxidant capabilities of these substances that can potentially be absorbed in the small intestine. The liquid fraction of what we eat, all right? The problem is that the antioxidant activity, the solid fraction, the fiber, isn't measured, as it's assumed that it isn't beneficial. Oh, it's just fiber. It's just going to go through your system. Mind you, we're only thinking what goes from your intestine into the bloodstream, and the fiber doesn't get there. It's non-soluble. It's too big, too bulky, too thick to make it through the system into the bloodstream, go through the liver, etc. However, this insoluble fraction, the fiber, arrives at the large intestine and the intestinal microbiota, can also ferment. Yes, where you get your fermentation, your probiotics, prebiotics. And it can extract even more antioxidant substance, which we can assess with our new technologies. All right. And so according to a Professor Hernandez at the University of Granada, his team has developed a technique called the global antioxidant response, which includes an in vitro simulation of the gastrointestinal digestion that occurs in our body. And it takes into account that forgotten antioxidant capacity, the solid fraction. Well, once they did this, they found, for example, mandarin, a lemon, grapefruit, and orange juices, it has been proven that their values greatly increase. For example, in the case of orange juice, the values range from, well, this is technical, it's a unit of the antioxidant capability, but it goes up substantially from 2 to 23. That means you're getting more antioxidant than what you thought. That's the bottom line. I just wanted to give you the scientific background to that. So drink your orange juice, big 16-ounce glass, all right? That'll give you 4 big oranges. Drink grapefruit juice. Do a combination, grapefruit and orange juice. And if you really want to lower your blood pressure and give a slightly alkalinity to your digestive tract, which can turn off a lot of pain in the body, pain in the joints, swelling in the feet, take some celery juice, fresh-made celery juice. Mix it with some lemon juice from 1 lemon or lime, the juice from ginger root, and also you can put in there grapefruit. That's a great juice, 16 ounces. And now we're told, oh, and you're getting a lot more vitamin C and antioxidant than what you thought. Good. From McGill University, which is up in Montreal, Canada, obesity can reduce your life by up to a minimum of 8 years. Let me repeat that. For years, we thought that it was bad if people were overweight, which means 10% more weight on your body than what your body should be able to handle. Okay. And so we had everything we could do, exercising, calorie restriction, modified fasting, to try to get people to burn up that extra overweight, that extra 10%. But then came the 1980s, 90s, 2000s, where more and more people began to eat out or call their food in, which is the same as eating out because the fast food places were bringing the food home. And then people would sit down to a meal in front of a computer or television, and they didn't care how many calories it had. They cared about, I like the taste, the salty and crunchy, the deep fried, loaded with trans fats, which are harmful fats that are pro-inflammatory. And by the way, when something is pro-inflammatory, when you eat that fried chicken that's been deep fried in that batter made up of white flour and spices, you are turning on inflammation in every cell in the body because your blood carries inflammatory cytokines and tumor necrosis factor alpha, all these prostaglandins, all these pro-inflammatory molecules. So every time your body is got a pro-inflammatory from a hot dog, hamburger, pizza, coffee, alcohol, it just keeps circulating throughout the blood. And that means that every cell is hit. Some are more vulnerable than others: the brain, the heart, the lungs, the eyes. And that means that we are creating inflammation, which then creates free radicals, which then damage those cells. Now, when you're young, most of that damage can be recoverable, meaning you get it back to normal. But as you age, especially when you get into old age, and what is the chronological age that you're now in old age? 27. Let me repeat that. 27. Now, because of COVID, we have lost between 3 to 4 years off our life expectancy. That means what we have been gaining with proper hygiene, better nutrition, exercise, stress management, cleaner working environments, living environments, all the things that have helped us, proper supplementation, that we have lost almost 70 years of benefit. So what was really jumping forward in the 1960s, remember back in the 1960s, if people lived to be 60, they thought they'd lived a long life. By 70, it was exceptional. 80 was the rarest of rare, and 90 was almost unheard of. Oh, by the way, I could take you back to many of the signers' Declaration of Independence, and they were living into their 80s and 90s. What happened? What happened that we went from living long lives? Look at many of the Greeks, the Romans, the Egyptians, the Mesopotamians. They lived long lives, but a lot of people live short lives. And those gains have been substantially erased. Not only are most people not healthy today, and they're not just overweight, but the average American adult is obese. And then you go from obesity to morbid obesity. And that's when you're going to die. By the way, I'm going to ask Rodney and Kyle to put up on PRN.Live and GaryandAll.com today a video that really shows this. It's a short video. It's about 12 minutes long. There's a man. His name is Fred Fisher. If you saw Bronx Tale with Robert De Niro, he was the big guy. I mean, big, huge guy. 727 pounds. And he called me, and I'd never spoken. I didn't know who he was. And he said that his doctor gave him a choice. He had to have an operation because he also had all these illnesses, including congestive heart failure and arthritis and depression, you name it. He had it. Elevated cholesterol. You wouldn't want to know his blood sugar readings and his blood pressure readings. They were off the charts. So the idea was that at his age, he was in his 50s, if he had the operation, there was a high percentage that he would die on the operating table for his heart. If he didn't have the operation, it was absolutely certain he was going to die. So either way, one, he was absolutely going to die. The other was a high probability. And he said, my doctor says there's no other choice. And I'm thinking, I listened to you on the radio, though unfortunately I haven't practiced any of it. Would you be able to help me? I said, sure. So I came over, I saw him, and I said, let's begin this. And he went back to his doctor and he says, doctor, I'm going to try one last thing for 8 weeks. And if it doesn't work, I'm coming in and doing the operation. If it does work, then maybe I'm on to a new path to regain my health. We began to film this. And we began to film the changes he was making and him telling us a story about how he got to be this big, because he wasn't always this big. It was about being it was about all the trauma he suffered as a teenager because he was a big guy, and how he held all that angst in. Well, in any case, at the end of this, we flew up to Detroit to be on Detroit PBS. I had a big special on at that time. And here he was, and he's standing there. He takes off his belt. I'm 6'2", and I hold the belt up, and the belt's taller than my head. And that was then. But now you see we had reduced his weight by over 350 pounds. More than that, when you would see him, he would just be invigorated in the mornings. He'd want to go across the street. There was a health food store and get his wheatgrass juice. And you see him taking down the juice. And then he would eat salads and beans and nuts and seeds. No fried food, no dairy, no animal proteins, no carbonated beverages, no sugar, and no alcohol. And he would sit out on his stoop and people come by and, he'd counsel them. He was like a friendly, non-licensed life coach, because everybody in the neighborhood, this is a Brooklyn neighborhood, where everybody likes everybody and talks and shares. And they liked the fact that here was a well-known actor, but they only knew him, from being inside his house looking out the window because it was so difficult for him to walk. And he couldn't get roles anymore. And now he was back. It took about 2 years, but in the end, you'll see his doctor saying that this was what caused him not to have an operation. His cholesterol, normal. Blood pressure, normal. Triglycerides, normal. His immune system, through the roof. His blood sugar level, normal. Pain, gone. Depression, gone. Heart disease, gone. All the things that would have killed him. And I share this with you because of this McGill University study. And that is that obesity is going to reduce your life by up to, I said minimum, it should be, I'll correct that, up to 8 years. Now, that doesn't include morbid obesity, which caused people to die earlier. So life expectancy can be reduced just by that one thing, just that. We're not talking about smoking and drinking and lack of exercise and stress. Those also add up to the years off your life, just being obese. And yet, instead of dealing nationally with a let's get the weight off and do it in a healthy way, not starvation diets, not fad diets, then let's do it right. We're not doing any of that. To the contrary, turn on television on any day, especially the weekends, especially when the ball games are on. Saturday, it's the college ball. Sunday is professional ball. How many ads do you see that really offer you something that promotes health? How many? I see none. All right. We give people ads, which is part of their conditioning, because after all, think of it this way. If you're the average person, you're thinking, well, everyone's eating pizza. What could be wrong with it, right? Whole families have, this is dinner tonight. Okay. And they're happy because they get full. It's not expensive. You can eat a big, gigantic cheeseburger with bacon and French fries and or onion rings and 2 types of so-called cheese and a big burger in there on 2 big buns. And one company actually has no buns. They have glazed donuts. Yeah, the hamburger and all that's between 2 glazed donuts. My God. Have we lost our minds? Everything there is going to create inflammation. And several of those things will cause cancer. And yet we're eating this thinking, because I watched on television with CBS and NBC and CNN and Fox, would they intentionally give me and my kids and our seniors foods or beverages that would cause disease? Yeah, they knowingly know this. They're not stupid. These are smart people. They care about the money they make, the advertising. As a result, nobody says a word. The Surgeon General, the FDA, USDA, nobody complains. because there's just too much money being made. And then the media doesn't cover it. And then one day we say, oh my God, we're a nation that's obese. Well, we've gone from being overweight to obese to morbidly obese. 80% of the American population, adult population, is overweight. But now we're seeing obesity in children, arthritis, heart disease in children. And now we see that children born today will not necessarily outlive their parents. But wouldn't you think it's time that we began to lose the weight by preventing it, being disciplined, say, I might like that. I might like the way it smells and tastes, how I feel afterwards. Gives me dopamine hits. It's a reward. When I eat a big piece of cake, that's a reward. Boom, dopamine in the brain. It's like you've just taken opium, right? And that's how it works. We become addicted to these pleasure rewards. Man, I'm so busy. I got to have that really salty, French fries, 30 of them, and that double burger. Got to have it. I'm going to feel good eating it and afterwards. Yeah. And you're taking a minimum of 8 years off your lifespan. Now, it can also cause adults to lose as much as 19 years of healthy life if it leads to type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. So 8 years if you're obese, 19 years you're going to lose if that obesity leads to heart disease or type 2 diabetes or cardiovascular disease, which almost always it inevitably does. There is no such thing in the entire scientific literature showing you can be overweight and healthy. That's just a psychological game that we play on ourselves. Oh, I'm overweight, but I'm healthy. No, you're not. You're deceiving yourself. And the research for this study was analyzed and from the U.S. National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, creating a disease simulation model to estimate the risks of adults of different body weight developing diabetes and cardiovascular disease. From this, the researchers then calculated the extent to which overweight and obesity may contribute to both years of life lost and years of healthy life lost in American adults aged 20 to 79 in comparison to people of normal weight. They found that people who were overweight with a body mass index of 25 to 30 percent of their body weight, you should be around 12 to 14%, were estimated to lose up to 3 years of life, depending upon age and gender, just the percentage of your body weight around the middle. Individuals classed as obese, 30 to 35% of their body fat, body mass index, they lost up to 6 years, and people classed as very obese lost up to 8 years of life. And we're becoming more and more extra obese. So extra weight had the greatest impact on loss of years of life among the young and drop with increasing age. So younger people, you're not getting the same kind of nutrition upbringing that many of us who are baby boomers and our parents had. We're just putting together every kind of food we can and eating more of it than what we need. But the good news is, coming up, I'm going to be doing a program, a webinar, probably within the next 4 weeks, definitely, in which I'm going to show you how to get the weight off, keep it off, get healthy, reverse the process of disease to prevent disease, and supercharge your immune system. That's coming. Just finishing it up now to get it ready. And it'll be a live webinar so I can answer questions as I always do. And finally, the more television you watch, the more bodily pain you have over time. This is from the Baker Heart and Disease Institute in Australia. They looked at 4,099 participants in the arthritis, diabetes, obesity, and lifestyle study. And they just said people are sitting too long watching television. And the time you take to watch television, it's associated with an increase in bodily pain, severity. You got to get up and walk. You got to move your body every 2 hours. Got to move those legs. Got to get up, take a little walk. You got to do something to stimulate circulation. And by the way, it also increases the pain of type 2 diabetes, the neuropathies. So that's what happens when you sit too long. Even a 1 hour increase in daily TV time was significantly associated with an increase in severity of pain. So let's get away from the televisions. No, I don't watch television, and I don't sit all day on the internet. Just don't do it. Also, well, one final thing, that a study shows clear new evidence of a mind-body connection. This University of Calgary, which is in Canada, a group working out of the University of Calgary Department of Oncology has demonstrated that telomeres, T-E-L-O-M-E-R-E-S, telomeres, these are protein complexes at the end of the chromosomes. As I mentioned before, imagine your shoelace. At the end of the shoelace, to keep it from unraveling, you have these little plastic tips. Those would be the telomeres in your human body that are in the end of your chromosomes to keep them from fraying out, shortening, and dying. And while they shorten in comparison to groups without any intervention, it's best if you understand that the more diseases you have of all types, the shorter those telomeres. A total of 88 breast cancer survivors who had completed their treatments for at least 3 months were involved in the duration of the study. The average age was 55, and most participants had ended treatment 2 years prior. And they wanted to see what was the impact of emotional distress. And in the mindfulness-based cancer recovery group, participants attend 8 weekly 90-minute group sessions that provide instructions on mindfulness meditation and gentle hatha yoga with the goal of cultivating non-judgmental awareness of the present moment. Just looking at something and saying, okay, I'm not going to react. I'm not going to get angry. It is what it is. It's just information. I don't have to overreact. I don't have to get angry. I don't have to get excited. I can just say, let it be. It is what it is. And that's what that mindful meditation does. Participants were also asked to practice meditation and yoga at home for 45 minutes every day. In the supportive expressive therapy group, participants met for 90 minutes weekly for 12 weeks and were encouraged to talk openly about their concerns and their feelings. The objectives were to build mutual support and to guide women in expressing a wide range of both difficult and positive emotions, rather than suppressing or repressing them. All the study participants had their blood analyzed and telomere length measured before and after the interventions. Scientists have shown a short-term effect of these interventions on telomere length compared to a control group. So we don't know if that lasts, but here's the takeaway message. No, that became too complicated. Let me do it. Redo this one. And then finally, we have a very interesting study from the University of Calgary on new evidence of a mind-body connection. And here's what they did. They took a group of breast cancer survivors who had survived for at least 2 years, and they met on a weekly basis, some on a daily basis, and they practiced yoga, and they practiced non-judgmental meditation, meaning if you have an event that happens, let's say someone's angry, someone's arguing, just accept it. That's what it is. Someone's angry and someone's arguing. It doesn't mean that you have to be angry and you have to argue. Let these things just be information that you can respond to without being upset or stressed. They found that the more people meditated, the more they did yoga, which is a gentle hatha yoga, the more their telomeres, the proteins that are at the end cap of your chromosomes, and the longer those telomeres are there, the longer the telomeres, the longer the cell lives. The shorter the telomeres, if you don't exercise, shorter telomeres. Stress, shorter telomeres. Bad diet, shorter telomeres. Electromagnetic pulsing, cell phones, computers, Wi-Fi, G5, smart meters, you're being bombarded by that. More stress on the cells, shorter your telomeres. Healthy plant-based diet, longer telomeres. Exercising regularly, longer telomeres. So it's just that simple. Before reacting, reason. If you react, you have no control over the situation. Your blood pressure is going to go up and your telomeres can shorten. And therefore you can relapse into diseases. I'm working right now on a study on acupuncture. And I'm showing thus far, it's almost a year, another month will be a year, and I'll complete it, that most people who are otherwise fit, even marathoners, are not aware that every time they get angry, yell, scream, or yelled and screamed at, or in any kind of toxic environment, their blood pressure goes up. That blood pressure going up can then precipitate a stroke or heart attack. When you're stressed, the stress hormones like cortisol, number one, but also catecholamines and the others, those elevate. So too does your blood sugar elevate. Glucose goes up. And adrenaline goes up, your fight or flight response. That creates electrical pulses, which can then interfere in your heart rhythm. You can end up with a AFib or tachycardia, irregular heartbeat, and not even know it. That can lead to a heart attack or stroke. And acupuncture and simple meditation can bring it all down to normal. That's what we're finding. Well, yoga, in this new study from the Gangarian Hospital in India, shows that yoga reduces blood pressure in patients with hypertension. That's correct. Yoga reduces blood pressure with high blood pressure. That's not good. Yoga helps reduce it. Now, add in meditation to that, and you're really helping yourself. And mind you, we think that only people overweight or diabetic end up having high blood pressure. Not true. Normal people are putting themselves at risk every time they argue, yell, scream, or live in a stressed environment. That's the latest on health and healing. You can get more information on articles and documentaries, essays and commentaries by going to GaryNull.com. And look at all the different things you can see there. All right? And spread the word. PRN.Live has some of the finest broadcasters in America. People who care about you, the people who've been in the front trenches, looking at the problems of life and trying to provide you with solutions, they're there. Ralph Nader to Abby Martin, from Jimmy Dore, we have dozens and dozens, 24/7. So it's one place that there's no bias, no obvious bias. I mean, everyone has some bias, but where everything is done that's possible to present facts, the truth. And sometimes that challenges official opinion, challenges corporate opinion, challenges political opinion. But then look back over a year, over 10 years, over 20 years, and the voices on that have been correct all along, even when the establishment, the so-called authorities, have been wrong. That's just one more reason why all the good hosts, you tree Sleet every day at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Utri Sleed was one of the most popular voices on WBAI for 22 years in the afternoon. And she had a program on Talkback. And for the last 18 years, she's been on PRN, following my program at 1 o'clock. And she takes calls the whole hour. And she deals with every issue imaginable. She is a formidable voice of reason. Utri Sleed, every day, Monday to Friday on PRN. Back in a moment. Please stay with us.
Are you tired of closed-minded programming? Well, look no further than PRN.Live, the home for progressive voices.